Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker.
All right, everyone, welcome to episode 7 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts, Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. Life's a beach, so come ride with us on Tokyo Wave.
Sound of the ocean. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku, Japan's most slammin', jammin' quarantine bunker.
Oh, well, slap your mama.
Join us in segments where we take you on a funky trip featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and the Tower of Power.
Wait, sorry, we've been watching too much Soul Train.
Or not enough.
All right, here are this week's news highlights.
The government has proposed new lifestyle changes to beat COVID-19, and Japanese netizens are not having it.
As Japan's state of emergency prolongs, more reports have emerged of people going nuts and doing crazy things.
Insanity. More foreign students in Japan are facing an uncertain future as the pandemic has caused many to lose their ability to pay school tuition.
Yikes.
This week in Japan.
All right, so to start off with, the government has proposed new lifestyle changes, quote unquote, to beat COVID-19. And Japanese netizens are not having it.
They really, at least on Twitter, they were not kind to these new lifestyle changes. So originally on May the 5th, when Prime Minister Abe extended Japan's nationwide state of emergency, which is now until May the 31st, he also announced a set of new lifestyle changes, which were put together by the government's coronavirus task force.
Ooh, task force.
So most of the suggestions are common sense, but I have to admit, some are pretty wacky suggestions.
All right, let's jump into it. So first up is basic infection control for each person.
Well, so you've got to keep the distance between people at least 1 meter and, if possible, 2 meters.
Oh, okay. Similar to the States,
so I guess
then.
you have to carry around a measuring stick with you and be like, oh, you're too close. That's 1.5. Step back.
Yeah, so if you want to have an outing, choose outdoor rather than indoor.
When talking, avoid facing each other as much as possible.
That one's going to be a hard one. Wear a mask when you are outside, when you are indoors, or when you have a conversation.
Otherwise, all the damn time. When you get home, first wash your hands and face, take a shower, change clothes as soon as possible, and then set the clothes on fire.
Wash your hands carefully with soap and water for about 30 seconds. Hand sanitizer can also be used. I think the trick is to sing happy birthday while you wash your hands.
Or you can just douse them in pure grain alcohol and then set them on fire with your clothes. There's a note here to be extra careful when meeting elderly people or people with a high risk of serious diseases such as chronic diseases.
That's probably one of the most important ones on here. Refrain from moving to or from areas where the infection is considered endemic.
Travel sparingly and only when unavoidable.
Make a note of who and where you met in case you become infected.
Be aware of the infection situation in your area using mind control.
So Parker, are you going to walk around with a notebook and make a list of everyone that you met?
You're not doing that already?
No.
Memo. But wait, there's more. Next up is basic tips for daily life.
Wash your hands frequently and disinfect your hands.
Use proper cough etiquette.
Make sure you open windows to ensure ventilation.
Keep your social distance.
Avoid the 3 mitsus: dense, close, and closed spaces.
Measure your body temperature every morning. If you develop a fever or cold, do not try to go out and treat yourself at home.
So I think the real juicy gems are in the next part. How to go about daily life activities.
Shopping.
Use mail order.
Go alone or with a small number of people.
Use cashless payments.
Make a plan and try to finish quickly.
please refrain from touching lots of things, such as samples.
When lining up at the cash register, keep your social distance ahead of and behind you.
And next for entertainment and sports related.
Choose an off-peak time to go to the park.
Watch videos at home to do exercise and yoga.
Not pornography. Jog in small groups.
Mind your manners to keep distance when passing other people.
Step aside, jive turkey. Make a reservation.
Avoid long stays in small rooms.
I wonder what this refers to, Aaron.
Oh, man.
Karaoke, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Wait a second. No, that's the next one. When singing or cheering, either keep enough distance or do it online.
Ooh.
I can't make this shit up.
And next up for use of public transportation.
Avoid conversations.
Avoid busy hours.
Move around on foot or by bicycle.
There's probably some sad salaryman that's having to bike from, Chiba to Tokyo.
There are actually probably a lot of people who are doing that.
Yeah.
Either because they're crazy or because their family is forcing them to. Next up, we have meals.
Use takeout and delivery. I'm making good use of this.
Choose to eat outdoors.
Avoid platters and cooking food together.
Sit side by side instead of facing each other.
Concentrate on cooking and be quiet.
Shut up and make me a sandwich.
That one's just really weird.
I mean, if
So they want us to be quiet while we're cooking now? Why?
because your Corona spit might end up in the food, and then
okay,
we have to listen to your dumb bullshit and get the Corona. That's a double whammy right there. Also, avoid sharing drinking glasses.
That's a no-brainer though, right? Up next is ceremonial occasions.
Avoid eating together with a large number of people.
Do not participate if you have a fever or cold.
Yeah, hopefully. The last part is the ominous new style of work.
The first one's quite obvious. Use telework or work in shifts.
Utilize staggered commuting.
This next one's interesting. Use office space spaciously.
Yeah, we all know how spacious Japanese offices are. Do meetings and business card exchanges online.
Ooh. When meeting face-to-face, ventilate properly and wear a mask.
As you might expect, the suggestions were roundly criticized by Japanese netizens, and I think we can kind of see why.
Yeah.
Pretty wacky.
Yeah.
But, the expert panel stands by their suggestions, though actually one member of the panel said thorough implementation of these and other measures was the only way to prevent a further spread of the coronavirus in light of the lack of a vaccine or an effective cure for COVID-19.
No, I mean, it's actually pretty good. The Japanese are looking at a lot of things that they do culturally. Like the business card thing might sound a little ridiculous, exchange it online. But if they actually do start, only exchanging business cards online, that could help out a bit.
Aaron, have you ever faxed somebody your business card?
Yes, I have. I had to fax my business card, and then I sent the same contents via email as well.
I think we've definitely been in Japan too long.
So the panel also indicated that industry groups should establish their own separate guidelines to attain the twin objectives of preventing further infections and allowing for business operations to resume.
On Twitter, we had a lot of negative reactions to these guidelines. One tweet said, "It is unpleasant to receive such detailed instructions." Another noted that many of these recommendations are already being followed by anyone who has common sense.
I like that one.
And yet another complained that these new lifestyle practices are basically sugar-coated terminology that tells people to avoid leaving their homes.
Yeah.
The recommendations regarding meals were especially unpopular, such as the part about concentrating on the food rather than talking with others at the table, otherwise known as "Eat your damn chow, peasant!"
So the sage advice of eating food side by side reminded one Twitter user of The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci.
we can eat just like Jesus did. It's perfect. The recommendation to remain quiet while dining out sounds like those crazy small restaurants that have strict rules. That's right, Gaijins, prepared to get stared at more.
Also, this notion of avoiding indoor entertainment venues, while I get where they're coming from, that suggestion invites the total collapse of concert halls, art galleries, theaters, and basically any type of entertainment.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. Please excuse us while we cancel this podcast and go hide under a rock for the next 2 years.
Hopefully we can get checks from the government.
Please send it to my rock. And of course, the entry ban on foreign nationals who want to enter Japan, including those with resident status, is currently set to expire on May 31st, but it could be extended. So we are still stuck in Japan, Aaron.
Yeah.
Until further notice.
Yeah, I'm sure the tourism industry as a whole is praying that they lift this ban ASAP.
You know, I really do think the tourism board should make a new slogan.
What would that be?
Visit Japan, the world's largest gated community. Psych! No, you can't visit, losers. Next up, as Japan's state of emergency prolongs, more reports have emerged of people going nuts and doing crazy things.
So on May 5th, the Yomiuri reported that Tokyo Metropolitan Police arrested a man who stabbed one neighbor to death and assaulted another on Sunday.
That's a nice stabbing motion you have there, Aaron.
I use my hands when I talk.
You should have seen it, guys. It was beautiful. So, 60-year-old Seiji Hiruta allegedly stabbed his 38-year-old neighbor, Katsuyuki Kobayashi, with a knife at the entrance to the victim's residence in Adachi Ward.
Wow.
Hiruta then allegedly struck Kobayashi's father with a hammer.
Ooh, jeez.
I mean, is this like Grand Theft Auto where you can just switch weapons?
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell? He had a knife and a hammer? I mean, this guy was really loaded for bear.
It's like Tarantino style right there.
And the younger Kobayashi was later confirmed dead at the hospital. Meanwhile, the elder Kobayashi suffered light injuries.
Upon his arrest, Hiruta admitted to the allegations. I could no longer stand their noise, and my patience reached its limit. The suspect was quoted by the police.
You have it, guys. Mr. Hiruta likes knives and hammers, does not like noise.
Yeah. Try to keep the noise down. It's gotten a bit too loud. He need to try to quiet it.
Or I'm going to stab and hammer you to death. I mean, seriously? Wow. This guy is
It
nuts.
freaks me out. I make a lot of noise in my apartment. I'm worried now.
You're either going to get the knife or the hammer or both. Maybe he had a hammer that had a knife attached to the end of it.
Ooh, do they sell those?
A hammer.
Yeah, maybe.
And so prior to the incident, Hiruta began banging on an adjoining wall. You ever heard that noise before?
Ooh, yes. I think.
Come out and then I'll kill you, he reportedly threatened. And unfortunately, he was not bullshitting.
Ooh.
I mean, seriously, I understand it was loud. I mean, recently, I think a lot of people have been a little bit stir crazy because of the lockdown situation across the world, really. But, I've heard some loud people nearby and I was kind of pissed off, but I wasn't really, knife them to death and then hit any other family members with a hammer level. It just wasn't quite to that level, I think. I mean, this guy, obviously, he's got a couple of screws loose.
Yeah. This is quite anecdotal, but I live right next to like a small river, and there's a young boy, and every Saturday and Sunday nonstop, he dribbles a basketball, and it drives me fucking insane, man.
Actually, so our studio here at Tokyo Wave, there's actually a really nice apartment building that I can see from the window of our studio. Mm-hmm. And occasionally, I guess, because all the kids are home from school, right? So even during the week, at like the same time every day, like the Bugle Boy, he would come out and play this song on his recorder. And I'm sorry to say it, but this kid needs to listen to his music teacher more. I mean, I don't mean to be the music critic for, some random elementary school kid, but this kid, I mean, can you do it in the bathroom? I mean, the entirety of Omotesando is getting serenaded by this kid's terrible recorder music.
Recorders are really big here too, right? All through elementary school. I think it's like the instrument of choice for Japanese public schools.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what temperature they burn at. Oh God. So yeah, guys, do not knife each other to death. Not cool. But unfortunately, that's not the end of the crazy stuff going on right now. In another report on May the 6th, TBS News reported that Tochigi Prefectural Police are on the hunt for an arsonist who started a fire in a hotel in Utsunomiya City, which is housing patients afflicted with COVID-19.
Jeez, man. So at 11:40 p.m., an employee at Hotel Maruji used a fire extinguisher to put out a burning carpet and scrape wood on an exterior passageway.
Yeah, burning carpet and scrap wood on an exterior passageway. We found a burning effigy of Mickey Mouse right outside Tokyo Disneyland, so I think it was left by someone who doesn't like Mickey Mouse. Just a thought. Aaron, have you ever seen that Chappelle skit about the player haters ball? I hope they catch this guy so he can be nominated for Hater of the Year.
It's a genius skit by Dave Chappelle.
I hate you, I don't even know you, and I hate your guts. I hope all the bad things in life happen to you and nobody else but you.
Next up, more foreign students in Japan are facing an uncertain future as the pandemic has caused many to lose their ability to pay school tuition.
So the Asahi Shimbun has reported that many foreign students in Japan face some tough choices ahead.
So they interviewed a group of college students from Bangladesh who showed them a stack of mail notices of overdue tuition payments.
One student said, "My parents can't afford to send my school money thanks to the virus, and I've also lost my part-time job. If this goes on, I will never be able to pay the tuition."
Under the national state of emergency, many businesses that give part-time jobs to foreign students have shut down, and part-timers are often the first to be let go.
Yes. I know this to be true. I mean, many companies I know, within, I think, a couple days of them announcing the state of emergency, they let all contract workers go. So definitely.
That's tough.
Yeah.
One of these students, whose name is Rahanul, was working at a convenience store and was also receiving money from his mother, who runs an aqua farming business in Bangladesh, to pay his annual school tuition of close to 1 million yen.
That's about 9,500 USD.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, he said that as things got much tougher after he returned from his winter break in early March, the convenience store where he had worked actually lost many customers, and he was told to take off time from work indefinitely.
Oh, wow.
Then his hometown in Bangladesh, where his mother lives, was locked down, and now she can no longer afford to make remittances to help pay his school fees. It gets worse. His former roommates have also lost their part-time jobs, and their parents are similarly struggling in the pandemic. When they could not cover the April rent for the house that they share together, the landlord charged them only half of the amount, but cut off their internet access.
Ooh, that's dirty.
And so apparently, to continue taking university classes that are now being offered only online due to the pandemic, the students had to pitch in together and ended up having to pay for a pocket Wi-Fi.
Another foreign student from China gave a similar tale of losing his job and how the shift to online lessons has ruined a lot of his impetus for coming to Japan to study in the first place. 22-year-old Huang has studied Japanese at a private university in Osaka Prefecture while working at a conveyor belt sushi restaurant. His dream is to become a simultaneous interpreter. Huang said his part-time job had provided the best Japanese learning experience of all. The Japanese conversations I have with restaurant staff and customers is totally different from the one that I learned in Japanese classes. A customer once told me, "Your Japanese is much better than mine." That made me so happy. I became confident. Under the current state of emergency, Huang has mostly stayed inside a dormitory for foreign students while taking Japanese classes online. I have only 1 year to study here in Japan, and now it is not much different from studying Japanese in China. That would be true. I think, definitely for language learning, being in the class is face-to-face is quite important.
I think a lot of foreign students in Japan are facing tough times, but there is some help out there. Municipal governments and social welfare organizations offer various types of loans and benefits for foreign nationals if certain conditions are met. Foreign students are also eligible for the 100,000 yen government handout. Actually, Education Minister Hagiuda just said in a statement today that students who have fallen on hard times will be given priority in these disbursements.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Some prefectural international exchange associations are also providing free consultation services for foreign students who are struggling during the pandemic.
Great to know. Great to know. We were once students here. It's definitely a tough life. I mean, when you're young, though, I think it's quite adventurous, but I can't even imagine, the uncertainty of being young, being a student, and also having, 1 or 2 part-time jobs in Japan is already just very chaotic. So with the chaos and uncertainty raising naturally from the coronavirus, I just can't even imagine what kind of situation a lot of these students are in.
I have a funny part-time job story. So when I was in my second year of college, I decided to get a part-time job. So I went and got the, permission from the Ministry of Justice to do the part-time job. And then I ended up getting a job working part-time actually in this neighborhood for a fashion retailer.
Ooh, fashion retailer.
Which was, it was kind of interesting, but it involved literally standing up all day.
Okay.
Because, you're a shop attendant, so you have to, there are no seats.
Yeah.
So it was hard on my feet, and the more unfortunate thing is I really kind of finally gotten the hang of it, but I'd saved up enough money, and I wanted to go on a quick kind of summer vacation, so I took a couple of weeks off. And unbeknownst to me, that was really not cool, apparently. So I came back and was immediately fired. And so, I learned the old adage of working in Japan: don't take vacation ever.
Yeah. Although that's changing to some extent, it's still very, very real. Not just for part-timers, but for, anybody anywhere who's working here, unfortunately. All right, Parker, I think up next we have Tokyo Panic Room.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave. Tokyo Panic Room.
Today on Tokyo Panic Room, we're going to talk about a panic happening outside Tokyo on the American West Coast, an invasion of Japanese murder hornets. The New York Times recently put out a piece on the murder hornets that reads like an 80s slasher flick.
In his decades of beekeeping, Ted McFall had never seen anything like it. As he pulled up his truck to check on a group of hives near Custer, Washington in November, he could spot from the window a mess of bee carcasses on the ground. As he looked closer, he saw a pile of dead members of the colony in front of a hive, and more carnage inside. Thousands and thousands of bees with their heads torn from their bodies, and no sign of a culprit.
I couldn't wrap my head around what could have done that,
said Mr. McFall. Only later did he come to expect that the killer was what some researchers simply called a murder hornet. With queens that can grow to 2 inches long, Asian giant hornets can use mandibles shaped like spiked shark fins to wipe out a honeybee hive in a matter of hours, decapitating the bees and flying away with the thoraxes to feed their young. For larger targets, the hornet's potent venom and stinger long enough to puncture signature beekeeping suit make for an excruciating combination that victims have likened to hot metal driving through their skin. In Japan, the Hornets kill up to 50 people a year. Now, for the first time, they have arrived in the United States of America.
Well, Jesus. So the murder hornets, actually, they're not going to murder you. However, what they are very good at doing, and why this is a big deal, is that, as we mentioned before, they are literally murderous honeybee assassins who could come to seriously threaten honey production.
But we have lots of honey here in Japan, even with the murder hornets. So what's the deal?
Well, Wikipedia tells us that beekeepers in Japan previously attempted to introduce Western honeybees, Apis mellifera, for the sake of their high productivity, but European honeybees have no innate defense against the murder hornets, which can destroy their colonies faster than Usain Bolt with an AK-47.
Pow.
Although a handful of Asian giant hornets can easily defeat the uncoordinated defenses of a European honeybee colony, the Japanese honeybee, Apis cerana japonica, has an effective strategy.
Yeah, basically the Japanese bees are murder ninjas too. So when a hornet scout locates and approaches a Japanese honeybee hive, she emits specific pheromonal hunting signals. When the Japanese honeybees detect these pheromones, 100 or so gather near the entrance of the nest and set up a trap, keeping the entrance open.
Wow. This permits the hornet to enter the hive. As the hornet enters, a mob of hundreds of bees surround it in a ball, completely covering it and preventing it from reacting effectively.
Yo, bum rush the show.
The bees violently vibrate their flight muscles in much the same way as they do to heat the hive in cold conditions.
And on lonely Saturday evenings. So this raises the temperature in the bee ball to the critical temperature of about 46 degrees Celsius. In addition, the exertions of the honeybees raise the level of carbon dioxide or CO2 inside of the bee ball. At that concentration of CO2, they can tolerate up to 50 degrees Celsius, but the hornet cannot survive the combination of the high temperature and the high carbon dioxide level caused by the bee ball. Some bees do die along with the intruder, much as what happens when they attack other intruders with their stings, but by killing the hornet scout, they prevent it from summoning reinforcements that could wipe out the entire colony.
Totally brilliant. I saw this on the Discovery Channel like 10 years ago in slow motion. I think they filmed it here in Japan. They had the hornets going into the bee nest and the bees, almost like this amazing clockwork. It really makes you think of like collective intelligence with these insects. I mean, it's incredible. That they even evolved to fight something like that.
Innately, Aaron, it looks like these American honeybees are doomed unless they can learn from the skilled assassins of the Japanese KGB.
Ooh, nice one. There might be some interesting things they could do. They've actually purposely introduced species from one country to another in order to fight off a new predatorial species entering said country. I wonder if maybe getting some Japanese bees and bringing them over to the States might help. I don't know. We'd have to consult a specialist on this, but...
Well, I mean, judging by the nature of these Japanese bees, though, they'll probably, murder all of the other bees.
And then America will just have Japanese bees.
Japanese honey tastes great, guys.
Oh, it's very good.
Yeah.
That is true.
Don't mean to be a buzzkill.
Yeah, I'm raising my finger.
We've got ninja bees and their honey is delicious. Those murder hornets, though, what's funny about the murder hornets? There's all of these like energy drinks and there are different like supplements you can take that have the essence of Japanese murder hornets in them.
Really?
Which, I mean, honestly, America loves these supplements. So I think, American entrepreneurs, it's time. You gotta import some Japanese murder hornet supplements.
Or just catch they need to catch and farm the murder hornets. which doesn't sound like that fun of a job.
Oh, we're here on the OK Murder Hornet Corral. We've got biggins, smallins, and stingy stangies of all shapes and sizes.
So James, here you came in for the job application. This isn't going to be your regular beef farm job. You see, what we got here is murder hornets. And the suits we got, they can poke right through that and kill you in 10 seconds. So we're going to have to ask you to build your own suit and come back tomorrow and get ready to fend them off while trying to extract the venom from inside each and every one of them. Are you ready? You ready to do this, James?
Well, yes, sir. I went to Murder Hornet and Sports Industry Community College for 3 years, so I think I'm ready to do it, boss.
That's real good. That's real good. We need people like you with that kind of enthusiasm, because let me tell you, my wife and children, they were killed by these murder hornets, so I made it my life's duty to kill each and every one of them and extract each and every bit of poison and resell it into the American economy.
Yo, dogs, we have a new product for you here on the Home Shopping Energy Channel. We've got us some Hornet Juice. With this Hornet Juice, you're going to be so pumped up. You thought you've had the supplements. You thought you knew muscle milk. You thought you knew steroids. You don't know shit. With this new Hornet Juice, you're going to be so pumped up, it's like having methamphetamine on methamphetamine.
I couldn't study for my exam, and I just couldn't focus on anything. But after doing the Hornet Juice, I actually started my own company and launched 5 apps on the App Store. I haven't slept for the past 7 days, but Jesus Christ! Bill, you've been on the computer for all day. What are you doing? I am fucking working. Leave me alone. Hornet Juice.
On a more serious note, they actually not just these supplements, but they also have various alcohol that's got the essence of the murder hornets in there.
When you say essence, is it like an actual extract from?
Actually, no. I literally mean there's like a bottle of shochu and there's fucking hornets inside.
Oh my god!
And you're supposed to drink it from the bottle. And like I actually did this once and I accidentally swallowed a hornet.
Oh jeez, man.
It was very crunchy.
I bet. Ugh. Jeez. Watch out, guys.
I actually don't know if you're actually supposed to drink it from the bottle, but we were kind of drunk. Murder hornets gives you high energy. Don't drink them whole.
Well, as the West Coast is worrying about these murder hornets, we have a lot of news and happenings in the political atmosphere here in Japan. Up next on Japanese Politics. Wow.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave. Japanese politics. Wow.
So, this week, actually, we're not just going to talk about Japanese politics, but more the multilateral situation going on, really around the world right now in the age of COVID-19, as world leaders are struggling to adjust to online diplomacy.
So, Japan Times reporter Satoshi Sugiyama has recently written about how global diplomacy's dependence on physical interactions, such as handshakes, bilateral meetings, and international summits, is not compatible with the current global state of affairs.
Yes, as each country is currently swamped by their desperate bids to contain the novel coronavirus outbreak within their borders, leaders are now forced to hold over their foreign policy goals and prioritize global responses to the deadly disease.
The newest weapon in modern diplomacy, virtual video conferences.
That's right, they're using Zoom, just like us. And this poses a pretty serious cybersecurity risk, as such communications tend to be highly classified and happen to be the exact reason why spies exist.
Yeah. Some world leaders, including Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, took part in the Group of 7 teleconferences in mid-April over resuming economic activities in the post-coronavirus world.
Additionally, G20 minister meetings, as well as IMF and the World Bank, all had web conferences last month as alternatives to in-person meetings. So, James Bond is out of a job, and Edward Snowden is going to have to find some better Hornet juice to keep up with all of this top secret chatter.
So this new normal is a buzzkill for diplomats whose job it is to excel in the ancient art of traditional face-to-face in-person negotiations.
In an international summit, lower-ranking official representatives from each nation state, known as Sherpas, all of whom are those Model UN nerds you remember from high school, hash out the details before their bosses, the heads of state, climb on Air Force One to go and pretend like they closed some big deal. So, most of these big handshake moments between leaders are kabuki, because the negotiations are mainly done beforehand. So, exactly like business negotiations in Japan.
Yes. Sounds like it.
Masahiro Kohara, a former Japanese diplomat, said not meeting in person can mean bad news for smooth international relations. Sharing meals at the same table together is critical in diplomacy. Kohara went on to explain how an atmosphere over a meal could be less tense, and leaders or diplomats might reveal true intentions that wouldn't have otherwise been shared during negotiations.
Good point. Yeah, a lot of people, kind of push aside these televised meetings of leaders, even when Trump met Kim Jong-un, as being all fluff. But, in actuality, it's a pretty big damn deal.
No, it really is. And even, the bilateral relationship between Prime Minister Abe and President Trump, of course, I think it's easy to poke fun at it and look at what kind of, hamburger was prepared for President Trump this time around, et cetera. But, these meetings have serious results and serious impact on the bilateral trade relationships. And really, if this was all Zoom meetings, I do not think we could have the same level of progress.
Just imagine Kim Jong-un and Trump on a Zoom meeting together. I don't know.
What? I can't hear you. You're bombing Washington, D.C.? Oh, screw you.
And then Trump just is shaking his head as Kim Jong-un is speaking Korean as if he understands everything.
I really think that this is terrifying because, remember during the Cold War, it was only a few seconds before someone was going to make a mistake and punch in the nuclear launch codes.
Yeah.
And now hope is in the balance of whether or not they said mom or bomb.
And or if their Zoom connection is good or not.
Yeah.
Or being hacked by somebody.
Oops. Online security is another serious problem. Just in April, the German Foreign Ministry restricted the use of the teleconferencing software Zoom because of lax security standards. The Taiwanese government and New York City schools also banned using Zoom. I wonder what kind of secret stuff those New York City schools are up to that cannot be divulged on Zoom.
Bad video conference etiquette is also a problem. Al Jazeera showed how an April meeting of the UN Security Council was rife with problems. Diplomats forgot to turn off microphones when they were not speaking. There was sporadic loss of audio, and some attendees were even disconnected. This sounds like every video conference call I've done personally.
But unfortunately now nuclear war depends on whether some oblivious diplomat can remember to turn off his damn mic.
Yeah.
Boris, we can hear your hostages moaning in the background. Mute!
Jumping into having to use Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts, Microsoft Teams on a daily basis, switch between them. There really is a huge gap between those who know how to use these platforms and those who don't. I think there's some super users. If you're negotiating with someone, you might have your cell phone on with a coworker at the same time, right? And then you have to remember to mute your microphone whenever they're speaking. That way you can talk with your coworker about the negotiation and what's going on. And I imagine it gets even more complex with these high-level talks amongst these leaders. Because they usually, you can use these methods, whenever they're going
Well,
back and
I
forth.
mean, even if we're having like a Sherpa to Sherpa diplomatic discussion, I mean, they're probably having sideline discussions internally. And if it's kind of like you might be on the call as if it's just you, but you've got someone standing right next to you and being like, yeah, tell him this next. Get that dumbass to say the wrong thing.
Oh yeah, of course they've always got, their quote unquote lawyer, not really lawyer, but maybe. But yeah. So I can only imagine, and just the sheer amount of people that are not used to this kind of technology is staggering. So it's got to be a mess.
Can you just imagine the potentially, sordid bombshells that, national governments, I mean, think about the stuff that even the U.S. government, in the State Department, people are probably saying when they forget to turn off mute on Zoom.
Oh, yeah. It's don't want to be too speculative, but it can probably get pretty
give those
dirty.
dumbass idiots what they want. They're worthless. They're from one of those shithole countries.
Oh, my God. All right. And on a lighter note, next up, we're going to do Yena Yena Bill Y'all and talk about Nintendo's success during this whole COVID-19 situation.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave. Yena Yena Bill, y'all.
Nintendo's Switch is doing gangbusters after their Animal Crossing game has been a smash hit that has led to new sales records.
It's totally nuts. Everybody I know in the States and a lot of people here in Japan are playing this game. People that have never played video games in their life.
It's crazy. I keep on seeing people talking about turnips on Twitter, and I'm like, turnips? I mean, are people going mad? And then I realize that apparently selling turnips is this big thing in Animal Crossing.
It's like it's its own economy within the game, which is kind of brilliant, I guess.
Aaron, want to buy some turnips? I've got 35. I'll give you a good price.
Someone needs to make like a turnip app that can like help like log all this stuff. They can make a lot of money right now.
Maybe there's like turnip mining going on. There's like all these like
yeah.
like farms of smartphones or Nintendo Switches or whatever.
Ooh, yeah. That's the Switch is really expensive right now too. The Switch Lite was only 20,000 yen, but
that's probably why they're sold out everywhere.
Oh yeah,
everybody's mining those turnips, trying to cause the they're dumping. We're talking about diplomacy. They're dumping these cheap inferior turnips on the market, and they're just ruining the turnip economy.
Bloomberg has reported that Nintendo Switch handheld console sold better than expected after global stay-at-home orders helped Animal Crossing become the console's fastest-selling title. That's a pretty big deal.
Wow. So the Kyoto-based Nintendo's operating profit tripled to 89.5 billion yen. That's $842 million. In the March quarter, after it moved 13.4 million copies of Animal Crossing in the 6 weeks since its launch. Animal Crossing became the breakout hit of the quarter after millions worldwide sought refuge in this virtual cartoon world. That helped Nintendo sell 21 million Switches in the year that ended March, beating its own estimate and Morningstar's expectation of roughly 20 million units.
I'm shaking my head right now. We should have bought Nintendo stock 2 months ago. Still, Nintendo joined fellow tech corporations in sketching out a cautious outlook for the year ahead, largely because of uncertainty over the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on production and services. It forecasts a 15% slide in operating profit, a decline in Switch console sales to 19 million, and a drop in Switch game sales to 140 million. Still pretty good. The company continues to wrestle with component shortages for its console, but now expects disruptions to fade away over the summer. President Shuntaro Furukawa said, "We expect the COVID-19 impact on our production to go away by summer, and our 19 million sales forecast is based on that. But we will revise the forecast if the virus impact is set to persist longer than we currently expect," he told analysts on a call. "There's a risk that we may need to delay releases of the games we plan for this fiscal year, but at this point we don't expect any major delays."
For now, Nintendo is riding the surprise popularity of Animal Crossing New Horizons, which helped propel a 40% rally in Nintendo shares since their low in March, adding more than $16 billion to the Japanese company's market value. Arriving at a time where people were looking for ways to connect with friends while staying at home, this marquee title in which players adopt cartoon avatars to interact with each other and set up their own isles has proven a haven from the outbreak.
Hideki Yasuda, an analyst at Ace Research Institute, said fiscal year 2020 software sales in normal conditions should be at least 180 million to 200 million. The 140 million figure could be a sign from Nintendo that there would be release delays of major titles.
Animal Crossing's popularity has made the Switch hard to find almost anywhere in the world. The company has asked its suppliers to boost Switch production to about 22 million units for the current fiscal year. Still, a lack of components across the manufacturing sector could weigh on its plans, while demand may subside once the COVID-19 fears go away. Also, there is trouble on the horizon as rivals Sony and Microsoft plan to launch new consoles in time for the holiday season. And of course, Nintendo, which launched the more affordable Switch Lite in September, said earlier this year that it actually does not plan to release any additional new hardware in 2020, which could put it in a difficult situation vis-a-vis these competitors who are going to come out with new consoles.
Yeah, it's a really interesting decision by Nintendo. The CEO actually came out and commented on this and said that the Switch is a 10-year project. So Nintendo does not plan on coming out with any new hardware for the 10 years from the release of the Switch. They actually saw really good success in the DS with this strategy, so they're trying to do the same thing with the Switch. We've seen a lot of really great improvements with the Switch as well, as far as them being able to run Unreal Engine and a lot of other software upgrades that Nintendo has historically veered away from, usually opting in for older technologies. That's why they lose out to Sony and Microsoft in a lot of the console wars. But right now, the Switch is strong. I think even if Sony and Microsoft have really good competitive products that come out this year, the Switch will still be a really high competitor and already has a lot of competitive advantage with its first-party titles.
Well, you know, that is interesting, but some analysts, and actually just in trading today for this recording session, have not been so bullish on Nintendo. My friend Serkan Toto, who is a game industry commentator and CEO of Kantan Games, said that Nintendo's results are impressive, but management is implying that the Switch has peaked. What is really strange is that Nintendo expects less software sales despite a massively expanded install base. So either Nintendo is being comically conservative, or they expect COVID-19 to have a massive impact on demand or their internal software pipeline. It's also concerning that Nintendo's mobile as well as first-party pipeline for the second half of the year is empty. You know, in addition, it just looks like a couple of hours ago that Jeffries put out a report that downgrades Nintendo's rating from buy to hold.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, we have to see with the Switch Lite what the actual numbers are over the next month. But, you know, I'm still long on Nintendo. I think them coming out with the Switch Lite is basically just putting the Switch in more people's hands for a lot less value. Although right now on Amazon, it's not at the $200 price tag. It's $500, $700 because everyone's price gouging now.
Yeah, so it's really hard to see. I mean, obviously, you know, on one side, the, you know, COVID-19 outbreak and the lack of other stuff to do would make you think that video games are going to go gangbusters. But, you know, obviously this whole outbreak and the limitations on movement it's caused around the world, I'm sure this is going to affect development timelines. And also there's a little bit of a damper effect it's also going to have on the kind of promotions and events that games companies are able to do this year. Actually, it just got announced today that Tokyo Game Show is not going to be held this year as a physical event, but it's just going to be online.
Yikes. Yeah. I mean, a lot of those events too, you can't convert them to online. It doesn't work at all. E3 being canceled this year and South by Southwest, a lot of these big conventions where the video game industry and a lot of other industries get a lot of boosts and promotions has halted a lot.
What's also another interesting thing that we have to think about is everyone said, a few years ago that consoles were deader than fried chicken, and smartphone games were going to be the new thing. But
right.
I mean, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft are still going gangbusters on these consoles.
The fact of the matter is these home consoles that Sony and Microsoft release are very expensive. Now we have a consumer base that is a lot more limited budget-wise. So, I mean, if you're at the store and you've got a Switch Lite for $200, and then, I don't know what the price point is for the PS5 or the new Xbox, but I imagine it's more than $500. And a lot of the games for those consoles too, you don't get all the content in one game. So you spend $70 to $100 for the game, and then you have to buy additional content. So a game these days can be anywhere from $50 to $150, which is kind of ridiculous. Switch is still going to be strong there. The market is currently divided now between Android and iOS, right, for mobile phones. And whenever you're developing an application for one of these phones, you have to choose between usually three things. A hybrid development framework that allows you to push out the application to both, which has a lot of downsides, or you develop natively for both. So for companies, they have to, if they have 20 engineers, it's like we either split our engineers in half, 10 do iOS, 10 do Android, or all 20 do the hybrid model. The hybrid model is very limited because you don't get any of the native functionality. So the game might run slower. It might look weird on Android when compared to iOS. So the mobile development ecosystem is still trying to figure out what's the best stack that we can use to develop for mobile when we have a market where, most people have Android devices globally, and there's so many different Android devices. And then you've got countries like Japan where most people have iOS. So it's, like, what the hell do we even start?
And this is not just games, obviously, but any kind of app. I actually have a friend who just recently put out an iPhone app, and he released it to very favorable reviews. But the people who were the most unhappy were unhappy because it was just an iPhone app and not an Android app.
Yes.
And these guys, they are vicious.
Yeah, and it's a completely different skill set. I mean, if you meet someone who can develop for the iPhone and Android, they're kind of what's the word?
Rich.
Yeah. Rich, or they're just a total fucking badass,
or both.
Yeah.
No, it's funny though. There's other statistics too. I mean, obviously Android's got more global market share, but a lot of people I talk to seem to suggest that iOS users tend to spend more money on paid apps.
No, that is a really interesting phenomenon. I think it might have to do a little bit with the fact that Android is more customizable and really more hackable. So people can easily, get apps and whatnot on the phone without, breaking the entire operating system. Whereas with iOS or on an iPhone, it's quite hard to hack the operating system. So really people end up paying for it. And I think the kind of users too that use iOS aren't really into the whole hacking scene and trying to figure out how to get everything for free on their phone. So they're more willing to pay. Yeah, so to wrap things up, definitely Nintendo is a stock to watch. It is a very interesting case study to watch right now as people are, using the Animal Crossing game and the Switch platform as an escape from everything.
That's right, Aaron. And if you try and sell me those crappy turnips again, I kill you.
Watch out, guys. Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there. We want your feedback, comments, and ideas. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp. That's wave@tokyowave.jp.
We will listen to your ideas, and we might even try something new.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Well, we hope you come back to do this with us again next week on Tokyo Wave. You could bet your last money it's all gonna be a stone gas, honey. In parting, we wish you love, peace, and good vibrations.